In the tapestry of human history, woven with threads of ambition, faith, and divine mystery, there are stories that stir the soul and challenge the spirit. Imagine a woman, born into a world of kings and gods, whose name would echo through centuries, not for her virtues, but for the fire of her will and the shadow of her choices. Her name was Jezebel, a queen whose life became a mirror, reflecting both the heights of human power and the depths of divine judgment. Dear friends, let us journey together into her story, not to judge, but to understand, to reflect, and to find the light of truth that speaks to us even today. In the ancient land of Sidon, where the sun-kissed fields of purple flowers and the sea shimmered like a divine mirror, a child was born under the weight of destiny. Jezebel, daughter of King Ethbal, entered a world ruled by iron and fire, where power was not given but seized. Sidon was no ordinary city. It was a crossroads of trade, faith, and ambition, a place where the gods of old held sway, and the sea whispered secrets to those who dared listen. Jezebel's father, a king both revered and feared, ruled with a strength that left no room for weakness. From her earliest days, Jezebel was not raised to be a mere princess, adorned for beauty or diplomacy, but a force to be reckoned with, a mind sharpened like a blade, a heart taught to wield influence as skillfully as a warrior wields a sword. Her upbringing was unlike that of other royal daughters. While others learned the gentle arts of grace, Jezebel was schooled in the intricate dance of power. She studied the ways of courts, the art of persuasion, the subtle threads that bind men's loyalties. She learned to see through the illusions of flattery and to bend the will of others to her own. To Jezebel, power was not a birthright to be inherited. It was a flame to be kindled, a force to be shaped. Her father's kingdom, vast and unyielding, was her classroom, and she was an eager student. In her heart burned a vision, not of servitude to tradition, but of a legacy that would outlast the ages. Yet, even in her youth, there was a restlessness in Jezebel's spirit. She saw the world not as it was, but as it could be under her command. Marriage, for her, was not a bond of love but a strategic alliance, a stepping stone to greater dominion. She dreamed not of a husband to rule her, but of a kingdom to shape. And so, when whispers of a distant land called Israel reached her ears, Jezebel's ambitions stirred. A new chapter was about to begin, one that would carry her across the seas and into the heart of a kingdom divided. Israel, a land of rugged hills and sacred promises, was a kingdom unlike Sidon. Its people were bound by a covenant with Yahweh, the one true God, whose voice had thundered from Sinai and whose laws guided their lives. Yet, when Jezebel's gaze turned to this land, she saw not a holy nation but an opportunity. Israel was ruled by King Ahab, a man who wore the crown but lacked the fire to wield it. His reign was fragile, his kingdom torn by rivalries and doubts. Ahab was a king in need, not of love, but of strength, of an ally who could fortify his throne. To Jezebel, he was not a partner to cherish but a tool to employ, a canvas upon which she would paint her vision. When the proposal of marriage came, Jezebel accepted without hesitation. But her heart was not swayed by promises of affection or the allure of a foreign court. Her acceptance was a calculated step, a move in a grander game. She left Sidon, her ship cutting through the endless sea, carrying not just a princess but a vision of power, of control, of a legacy that would reshape nations. The gods, it seemed, watched her journey, their whispers carried on the waves. As her ship approached the shores of Israel, Jezebel stood at the prow, her eyes fixed on the horizon, her heart resolute. She was not coming to serve, she was coming to rule. Upon her arrival, Israel greeted her with awe. She was a vision of regal splendor, her beauty a weapon as potent as her intellect. Her presence commanded silence, her gaze pierced through pretense, and her smile spoke of a power that few could comprehend. The people of Israel saw a queen, foreign and radiant, but Jezebel saw only the beginning of her reign. She married Ahab, and together they stood before the kingdom. Yet it was clear from the outset that Ahab, though king by title, was a shadow beside her light. His weaknesses, his indecision, his wavering heart, became the cracks through which Jezebel's influence flowed. She did not stand beside him. She stood above him, her will shaping the destiny of a nation. Jezebel's reign began not with quiet submission but with a storm of transformation. Israel, a land steeped in the worship of Yahweh, was to become her canvas. She brought with her the gods of her homeland Baal, the lord of storms and fertility, and Asherah, the mother goddess. To Jezebel, these were not mere deities. They were symbols of her authority, tools to bind a kingdom to her will. She built altars to Baal in the heart of Samaria, their towering presence a challenge to the sacred temples of Yahweh. She invited priests of her faith to the royal court, their rituals filling the air with incense and chants foreign to Israel's hills. This was no mere act of devotion. It was a revolution. Jezebel sought not only to rule Israel's politics but to reshape its soul. The worship of Yahweh, ancient and unyielding, was to her an obstacle, a chain to be broken. She silenced the priests of Yahweh, their voices drowned by her decrees. Those who resisted were met with her wrath, their defiance answered with exile or death. Jezebel's ambition was boundless, her resolve unbreakable. She did not merely reign. She remade Israel in her image, her will a fire that consumed all opposition. Yet, in her pursuit of power, Jezebel sowed the seeds of discord. The people of Israel, though swayed by her presence, were a nation bound to their God. Her altars to Baal stood as a wound upon their faith, her decrees a challenge to their covenant. Whispers of resistance began to rise, quiet at first, but growing louder with each passing day. In the shadows, a prophet named Elijah emerged, his voice a thunderclap against Jezebel's storm. He was a man of faith, unyielding and fearless, and his presence would ignite a conflict that would shake the foundations of her reign. The stage was set for a battle not of swords, but of spirits, a battle that would define Jezebel's legacy and test the soul of a nation. In the heart of Israel, where the hills bore witness to the ancient covenant, a voice rose like a clarion call against the storm of Jezebel's reign. Elijah, the prophet of Yahweh, stood as a solitary figure, clothed in faith and armed with the fire of divine truth. To the people, he was a beacon. To Jezebel, he was a threat. His words cut through the incense-laden air of Samaria, piercing the veil of her authority. "Turn back to the Lord your God," he proclaimed, "for the gods of Baal are but shadows, fleeting and false." Elijah was no ordinary man. His life was a testament to the power of faith, his miracles a sign of the God who had chosen Israel as his own. Jezebel, however, saw Elijah not as a prophet but as an enemy. His defiance was a direct challenge to her vision, a spark that could ignite rebellion among a people she sought to bind. Her response was swift and fierce. She sent messengers to Elijah, their words dripping with venom. "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by tomorrow your life is not as one of those you defy." Her threat was not idle. It was a vow, born of a heart hardened by ambition and pride. Yet Elijah, guided by the hand of God, fled into the wilderness, not out of fear, but to seek the still, small voice of the divine. In the desolate places, where the wind whispered and the earth stretched endlessly before him, Elijah found solace. God sustained him, sending an angel with bread and water, renewing his strength for the battle ahead. It was there, in the silence of the wilderness, that the Lord spoke, not in thunder or fire, but in a gentle whisper, commanding Elijah to return and confront the forces that sought to unravel Israel's faith. Emboldened, Elijah set his face toward Mount Carmel, where he would challenge not just Jezebel, but the very gods she championed. The stage was set for a moment that would echo through the ages, a clash of faith and power that would reveal the truth to a wavering nation. On the slopes of Mount Carmel, under a sky that seemed to hold its breath, Elijah called the people of Israel to gather. The air was thick with anticipation, the weight of a kingdom's soul hanging in the balance. Before them stood two altars, one to Baal, adorned with the grandeur of Jezebel's priests, and one to Yahweh, simple and unadorned. Elijah's challenge was clear: let the true God answer with fire. The prophets of Baal, 450 strong, began their rituals, their voices rising in fervent cries, their dances frantic under the relentless sun. They called upon their God, offering sacrifices, pleading for a sign. But the heavens remained silent, their God unmoved. Elijah watched, his heart steady, his faith unshaken. With a voice both calm and piercing, he mocked their futile efforts. Perhaps your God is sleeping or on a journey. Cry louder. The hours passed, and Baal's silence grew deafening. Then, as the day waned, Elijah stepped forward. He rebuilt the altar of Yahweh stone by stone, a symbol of a faith restored. He drenched it with water, not once but 3 times, until the trench around it brimmed, making any natural flame impossible. Then, with a prayer as simple as it was profound, Elijah called upon the Lord. O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel. In an instant, fire fell from heaven, a blaze so fierce it consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench. The people fell to their knees, their voices united in awe. The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. The prophets of Baal were seized, their false claims exposed, their lives ended by the justice of the moment. For Jezebel, far from the mountain, the news was a wound to her pride, a crack in the empire she had built. Her fury burned hotter than the fire on Carmel, but her power, for the first time, seemed to falter. The God of Israel had spoken, and the people had heard. Yet Jezebel's heart remained unyielding, her resolve a fortress against the truth. The triumph on Mount Carmel was a victory for faith, but it was not the end of Jezebel's story. Her anger, now a raging inferno, sought to consume the prophet who had dared to challenge her. She sent word to Elijah once more, her message a vow of vengeance. May the gods deal with me, and worse, if I do not make your life as one of those you have slain. Elijah, though strengthened by God's power, knew the weight of her threat. He fled again, not in defeat, but in trust, seeking refuge in the wilderness where God's presence had sustained him before. There, he wrestled with fear and doubt, yet found in the stillness the courage to continue. Jezebel's reign, however, grew darker. Her grip on Israel tightened as she hunted those who clung to the worship of Yahweh. The blood of prophets stained the land, their voices silenced by her decrees. She replaced dissenters with loyalists, her court a fortress of control where none dared oppose her. Yet, beneath the surface, the seeds of rebellion grew. The people, stirred by Elijah's miracles and the fire on Carmel, began to question the gods she had imposed. Whispers of hope spread, carried by those who remembered the covenant of their fathers. Jezebel's power, though vast, was not eternal, and the cracks in her dominion began to show. In the shadows, a new figure emerged, Jehu, a warrior anointed by God to bring judgment upon the house of Ahab. The prophecies of old, spoken through Elijah, foretold the end of Jezebel's line. The dogs will eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel, the prophet had declared, and the words hung like a storm cloud over her reign. Jehu's rise was no mere rebellion. It was the hand of divine justice moving across the land. As he rode toward Jezreel, the city where Jezebel held court, the air grew heavy with the weight of destiny. The queen who had shaped a kingdom now faced the unraveling of her legacy, her ambition a flame that could no longer withstand the winds of judgment. As Jehu's chariot thundered toward Jezreel, the city trembled under the weight of an approaching reckoning. Jezebel, perched in her palace high above the streets, knew the hour of judgment had come. Yet she faced it not with fear, but with the same unyielding defiance that had defined her life. She adorned herself in regal splendor, her robes a cascade of crimson and gold, her face painted with the beauty that had once swayed kings. From her window, she gazed upon the advancing army, her eyes cold, her heart resolute. Jezebel would not bow, not to man, not to fate, not even to the God she had defied. She was a queen, and she would meet her end as one. Jehu, anointed by the prophet's word, was no ordinary foe. He was the instrument of divine justice, his mission clear, to end the house of Ahab and cast down the idols Jezebel had raised. As he entered the city, he looked up to the palace where the queen stood, her silhouette a stark contrast against the setting sun. "Who is on my side?" he called to those within the palace walls. Two eunuchs, long weary of Jezebel's tyranny, stepped forward. At Jehu's command, they seized her, and with a cry that echoed through the streets, Jezebel was cast from the window. Her fall was swift, her body broken upon the stones below, the earth itself bearing witness to the prophecy fulfilled. The dogs will eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. In the silence that followed, the dogs came as foretold, and her once proud form was reduced to scattered bones. The queen who had sought to reshape a nation, to bend its faith to her will, was no more. Her name, once a symbol of power, became a whisper of warning, a tale of ambition that soared too high and fell too far. Yet even in her destruction, Jezebel's story was not merely one of defeat. It was a mirror held up to the human heart, reflecting the cost of pride, the danger of defying the divine, and the fleeting nature of earthly power. Dear friends, the story of Jezebel is not merely a tale of a queen long gone. It is a call to each of us, a summons to examine our hearts. Jezebel was a woman of immense gifts, intelligence, beauty, and an indomitable will. Yet she chose to wield these gifts not for love, not for justice, but for control, for a vision that placed her above all others. Her life reminds us that power, when divorced from humility, becomes a fire that consumes not only others but the one who wields it. Her fall, though tragic, was not the end of her story, for in her demise, Israel found a path to renewal, a chance to return to the God who had called them his own. As we reflect on Jezebel's journey, let us ask ourselves, what do we seek in our own lives? Do we chase ambitions that lift us above others, or do we seek to serve, to build, to heal? The God who spoke through fire on Mount Carmel, who sustained Elijah in the wilderness, and who brought justice to Jezreel, is the same God who calls us today. He invites us not to rule over others, but to walk with them, to share in their joys and sorrows, to be bearers of his love in a world that so often hungers for it. Jezebel's story is a warning, yes, but it is also a promise. It tells us that no empire built on pride can stand forever, but it also whispers of redemption, of a God who restores what has been broken. Let us, then, turn our hearts toward that restoration. Let us seek not the fleeting crowns of this world, but the eternal grace that binds us to one another and to the divine. And as we go forth, may we carry this lesson, that true greatness lies not in domination, but in compassion, not in power, but in love. If this story has stirred your heart, as it has mine, I invite you to share it with others. Let us continue to explore the sacred stories that shape our faith, that challenge our spirits, and that draw us closer to the God who sees all, loves all, and calls us all to a life of purpose. Shalom, my brothers and sisters, and may the peace of God guide your path.